course, all the important information with you after this meeting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing so many countries, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Azerbaijan. That's great. That's great. Thank you for joining.
Amiran Shota, greetings.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello. So I will start sharing my screen while everyone is joining. And this is like actually what the first question that I would like to ask you. How are you today and what counselor are you today? So also write in the chat, how are you feeling about your job that you do maybe every day with students, like coping with different challenges? Are you confused maybe about some steps? Do you feel yourself relaxed while doing your job? Maybe, of course, I'm sure that everyone is hardworking in this group today. Maybe sometimes, and also today, you feel already tired because it's like the end of the summer, school starting soon, and of course, like you might be a bit exhausted with all those students coming, or you feel happy. So, how are you today? What counselor today? Please share in the chat. It would be nice also to hear some words from you. Yeah, and thank you for sharing all at once. That's great. That's amazing to hear.
Can we add,
Kira.
Oksana, if you have a student at our competitive college club, Mark Plus, say you have a student, that will be wonderful to learn about your students attending already our programs.
Yeah. Mondays are not easy, tired. Yeah. But we will try to make this evening as easiest as possible for you because we prepared a nice program and I'm sure that you will enjoy and you will get something interesting from us today. Interested and curious, relaxed, curious, relaxed. That's great that many people feel relaxed. It's evening time. So it's nice, yeah, nice to see that you're also relaxed and you are curious about what is coming. Okay, so I think we can officially like start and kick off our first day today. And it's my pleasure also to start with introducing myself. First of all, my name is Oksana Husakova, and I'm Education USA Regional Underground Cohort Coordinator. Today, with my colleagues and our special guest, we will we'll prepare a nice program for you about advising students, what counselors can do with the students and how they can actually help students when they apply to universities. And it's my pleasure to give the floor to my colleague Yulia. First of all, Yulia, could you please say, wave your hand?
Hi. Well, yes, nice to be here today, and thank you for your commitment to, helping your students and supporting your students. I look forward to presenting today and, helping you learn more about higher ed in the U.S. and how you could also support your students briefly, very briefly, in the context of application process to the U.S.
Thank you, Yulia. Also, Arai will join, my colleague Arai will join us today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Aray, and I also wanted to take a moment to thank all of the counselors and teachers who joined today's session and are devoting their precious time to learn more about how they could support their students.
Thank you, Aray. And of course, it's my honor to introduce our manager of the team, Education USA Regional. This is Dali. And thank you, Dali, for joining us today for opening this first day. And the floor is yours as well.
Well, thank you very much, Oksana. I'm so excited. Good afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to the Education USA Cross-Regional Counselor Academy. And it's so wonderful to see all of you here, teachers, counselors, academic advisors, education professionals, my colleagues from Georgia, whom I recognize, but there are some new faces as well, but all of you across Eurasia and Central Asia. First of all, thank you for being here because I know and it's not just, the words. I know how busy you are, particularly at this time of the year before the start of the fall and new academic year. And the fact that you have chosen to spend those 3 afternoons with us says something important about you and your commitment to your students and your futures. And we're excited that this is our first Cross-Regional School Counselor Academy. And my colleagues, Oksana and advisors, and everybody has put their heart in to bring you the wonderful experiences in the next 3 days. And so the diversity you represent is exactly with what we wanted. Some of you, for some of you, it may be years of experience, and for some of you, it's going to be something very new, very fresh. Both perspectives belong here because we want a conversation, not only from our side, which there will be a lot, but also from among yourself, okay? And of course, we won't turn everyone into a U.S. admissions experts in 3 days, but everybody will develop a clear understanding of the process and, more importantly, practical resources which you can go and use immediately. And my colleagues will tell you where our recordings are, what kind of resources are out there, what's fresh, what's trendy, what's new. And so that next time you will get a student in your office, I'm thinking about studying abroad in the United States, particularly where do I start, you will have your starting journey already set, okay? And so we will go through this journey over the 3 days together. And yeah, so there will be questions, hopefully from your side. There will be some that we will answer. There is a lot of context, geographic context, based on the countries. And we wish that you collaborate during those sessions so that update and kind of teach each other if there are anything that if there is anything that works well in your country settings, in your cultural context, in your geographic area. And so that's going to be a wonderful, practical, interactive, inspiring academy, the beginning of a much longer connection among all of us. And thank you again for joining us. Let's get started.
Thank you so much, Dali, for these kind words and this inspiring speech. And I still see that participants are joining, so we are starting slowly. And I would like to say thank you once again to everyone who is with us today. This is really a pleasure and honor for us to welcome such a dedicated group of teachers, counselors, educators. And as it was mentioned, this is like cross-regional academy, and this academy brings together participants from 10 countries. And in this way, we'll try to create such valuable opportunity of exchange and experience, learning from different perspectives. Please share your comments in the chat whenever you see that the topic is something that you have already had in your life, or you have a nice story to share. It would be nice to read or to hear from you, of course. And please remember that each of you in this academy plays an essential role because every day in your work, you help students recognize their potential, explore educational opportunities, make some kind of decisions important for their future. And we're also grateful for that you have chosen this academy, this meeting today to get some knowledge from us because we represent Education USA and this is a U.S. Department of State network. My colleagues will tell you more about this network. And through this global network, we also help students research their opportunities. We help them understand financial considerations, complete their applications, prepare for student visa process, and plan also for their departure. So everything that we know, we will try to share with you. And of course, Education USA works closely with such educators like you. We also recognize that teachers and counselors, these are those people the first people whom students actually approach for this guidance and for this help to define their future steps in their life. During our time together, we will explore the admission process. We will share some practical guidance. We'll also try to strengthen your skills that you will need to support students at every stage of the application. And it's, of course, our honor to host not only advisors from Education USA Network, but also international community of educators. And as it was mentioned in the program, you will have a chance to meet US representatives. So it's a great opportunity to network, maybe conduct future presentations for your schools and find new contacts. So I would like to move to the program that we will have for this 3 days. And just quickly would like to mention once again what is expected. So basically, I have shared this program with you already. So if you missed it, you can find the email from me and you will see the same program that you can see on my screen right now. Our Education USA School Counselors Academy will take place for 3 days, today, tomorrow, and on Wednesday. This is August 24, 25, and 26. The time that we are starting the academy is 4 p.m. EST, and we will try to finish it at 6 p.m. So it basically will take time for 2 hours. For day one, we will explore the topic and we'll talk about Education USA in general and some foundations of educational counseling. So we will try to share with you the main steps that students usually do when they apply to us. And of course, we're expecting our special guest today from New York University, Abu Dhabi, and she will tell us about supporting students with their essays. So she will share all the essential things and points about students' essay, how you can help them, what you can maybe check there, and what usually universities look for in these essays. For day two, this is August 25, we will consider the topic about Common App application. And this is basically the main application that students use when they apply to US universities. So we will talk also about focused advising more, and especially how to advise students who are applying for STEM programs and student athletes. And of course, one of the most interesting topics will be AI for counselors. Please don't miss it because you will enjoy it a lot, I'm sure. We will have our special guest from College Board. She will share all the steps about Common App application and how actually counselors can be helpful and can help students with this application. For day three, this is August 26th, we will cover also 3 topics and we will have 2 special guests. We will talk about advanced counseling skills. We will talk about post-admission support, what actually happens with students when they already admitted, yes, and like what this process looks like from the university side. And our guest from University of Pennsylvania will share how to write effective letters of recommendation. So they basically will tell you all the secrets, what they expect to get from you as school counselors and what they would like to see on those in those letters of recommendations. So if you like the program, please use the emoji. You can find it on your screen and just like share what do you think about this program. Is it something that is still exciting for you, or you are now a bit worried and tired of listening about all these topics? Please share in the chat or use emojis. It would be also nice to see what do you think about this program. Thank you. I see hearts. So I hope that you will enjoy all these topics, and especially those that are considering about AI, STEM, student athletes, letters of recommendations, students essay. And of course, I think we are ready to move to our first topic, and we will tell you more about Education USA Network. Many of you, of course, already know what is this, what is the system look like, what is the program, and what our advisors do. But it would be nice to share like all the steps in details and like tell you maybe some secrets that you could also use for your students. And I would like to give the floor to my colleagues who will start and share with this information about Education USA Network.
Thank you very much, Oksana. So I believe majority of you are familiar with Education USA Network. We are the official source on US higher education, and There are plenty of resources available on our website and also on the YouTube channel, which we will, I think, refer back throughout the academy, and which your students can use as one of the resources, especially when they are exploring different fields and what to study, the application process, when they're in the beginning, whether they are in the middle of the process. They will be useful webinars that you could find there. And there are over 430 international student advising centers all over the world, as you can see on the slide. And we represent the region. And as it was mentioned, there are many educators here from 10 different countries. So we are glad to support students from all over the region, and today also share some observations and knowledge that is gained, and of course also maybe learn something new from you during the Q&A session. And Education USA is dedicated to promoting US higher education globally, and throughout our webinars, which if you're not familiar with, on our YouTube channel, you could see that the webinars are held not just by the advisors, but with many representatives of the US institutions with whom it's possible through watching these recordings also to learn more, not just about the topic, but also about the philosophy of featuring institutions. And to the next slide. So here you could see the 5 general steps that we usually identify as how to prepare for studying in the US. And you could see that the numbers are shaking a bit. So the research options here is the first step, and each step will be covered separately. And I believe this is the a great way to, especially to get started, and also to outline the whole process when you don't just think about how to start, but also you can envision yourself already applying also for a visa and preparing for the departure. And I think even mentally, this kind of map helps students to imagine themselves crossing all over the steps and eventually studying there. Later, Yulia, my colleague, will join me sharing the last 3 steps, and I will focus on the first and the second one, understanding how to identify your potential options and ways to secure funding. So to the next slide. And the system of US higher education is divided into can be divided into 3 areas. The first one being the undergraduate study, the second one is graduate, and the specialized and professional studies. Today, we will focus primarily on undergraduate studies, and especially at the colleges and universities which allow to get a bachelor degree. Next slide. So when we consider our options and thinking about how many institutions the student should apply, of course, it depends on each student and their capacity, resources, and preferences. But overall, it's suggested to apply to from 10 to 15 universities, and the Common App system allows to apply up to 20 universities. The process of researching options starts much earlier than the 1 year before graduating, and starts with also of course, in the earlier grades, it's learning English language in a sufficient level, identifying students' interests, but also when it comes closer, it's also time needed to prepare for the tests and understanding what kind of documents are needed, and the process of understanding what kind of students are at a particular university, what particular university is looking for, and identifying these kind of values. The earlier this process starts is the better, and the opportunity to meet with the representatives of the institutions, or just listen to them, or to the alumni with whom we also feature the webinars, or with the current students, allows not just the senior students, but also junior students to understand better what to prepare for. And this first step actually would start much earlier than the consecutive steps, and the requirements of the university may differ, and also it may have different pictures according to the country. For some countries, test optional options could be more available compared to others. So requirements vary and also have their own country-specific context. And for the new counselors or teachers that are just getting familiarized themselves, the process of applying to US itself takes in a year, and the deadlines are strict, being usually starting from November, and the restrictive early action deadlines may start even a bit earlier. So by the almost beginning of their final year, they should already be kind of very prepared to submitting their applications. Of course, they will have also a couple of months till November, but this is a good thing to keep in mind. And there are over 4,000 institutions in the US, so there is a variety of options. And here, while different universities are being researched and chosen, we will talk about the concept of best fit and the resources to just understand like what options are there. So moving to the next slide. For the student to identify their priorities, it would be important to develop themselves academically and also out of studies to better understand their preferences. And by identifying their own priorities, they will be able to match it with the characteristics of the universities, be it the academic interests and also in what kind of learning environment they want to study, whether it would be a small class or they want to study in a very dynamic and large research institution, depending on whether they would want to live in the city or in the rural area, what kind of student life they want to have, and what kind of opportunities they are also looking for at each institution. And while it's also later in their stage of researching the universities, they will see what kind of research opportunities are there, what kind of professors teach there, whether it's in a big city or not, what kind of climate is there, because climate itself is a very diverse in the US, and it's possible to live in the climate that resembles our region and also in much warmer. So this kind of different aspects would at first glance, some of them may seem as not being very important. However, especially considering that some students may have different kind of health also aspects that would dictate where they want to live, psychological aspects, these kind of things should be considered also while they are researching their options, in addition to, of course, the financial part. So to the next slide. And as the example of this kind of fit, I wanted to compare two institutions, UPenn and Columbia, which both are Ivy League institutions. And at the first glance, when student is very academically strong, they have strong test scores, and they have different kind of experiences that informed what they want to study, it may seem that if their academic field is available at both institutions, that both of them may potentially fit. However, by looking closer at the details and distinctive features, we would see that these two institutions have very their own kind of distinctive features. And starting from the structure, so at UPenn, students should choose among 4 undergraduate schools, while at Columbia, the core curriculum will be studied by all students regardless of their major, which also kind of informs us, for example, if students can choose among 4 undergraduate schools, then it should be a student who is more or less aware about where they're heading, what kind of academic or professional field they want to choose, while Columbia could be more suitable for those students who want this kind of structured approach when the university guides them and allows them to understand themselves better throughout their studies. And while these are very flexible things that kind of available at both, these kind of divisions of the schools and availability or absence of a core or open curriculum informs us about what environment would be suitable, because there are students who already understand what they want to study, and for them the first option could be more suitable, and those who are yet exploring their choices. And the interdisciplinarity at UPenn is one of the things that you could also notice from their website, from the strategic plan, from the student newsletters and their experiences. And at Columbia, you would see that they have more shared coursework, and students from different backgrounds could have a common ground discussing similar topics through the subject that they take together. So it may be less suitable for those students who want this kind of very flexible and who want a lot of freedom. However, there are students who thrive in such an environment. And while at UPenn, where in the third part where you see the learning style, you could see that the attention is paid towards how you would apply the knowledge that you gained, how you would use it in the internships, or how you implement it in your collaborations. At Columbia, you would see that the core curriculum emphasizes reading, discussing, exploring different kind of philosophical questions, debating. And that also and while I'm explaining this, I think maybe some of you already have a picture of student in your mind who would be a good fit for one and for another one. And also, about the campus and city. While both of the institutions are located in cities, you would also see, and also that's something that is very clear from the way they communicate, how, for example, New York City is a very huge part of the student life for Columbia University students, and at UPenn, they still have an access to the opportunities that city offers, but it's much more contained. And students who want to develop maybe closer relationships on campus, who may get overstimulated by the atmosphere of a very large city, they could choose the institution which is located in a smaller town or city, or even in a rural area, where they will purely focus on their campus life. And of course, the majors and fields also are distinguished at two institutions. While UPenn is one of the most popular, of course, and I think many of you know the Wharton Business School would differentiate it. And at the same time, there is an opportunity to combine this kind of interdisciplinarity approach. And you would see, even from the supplemental essay questions, which are required, and it will be discussed a bit later by institutions separately, from the questions that they ask, it's also possible to research your options and see what the university is looking for and what they are prioritizing, whether the student will be able to thrive and benefit from the interdisciplinarity, or maybe the fields that are indicated in the Columbia, maybe the student is unsure, and identifying kind of their options within this structured approach would be better, as it was said. So eventually we could see the student profile from this kind of separation. Of course, it requires time to research each university in particular and understand these kind of things. But I think even from how schools are divided, what kind of curriculum is offered there, where the university is located, tells not just the basic information, but much more that lies behind these factors. And moving to the next slide. So here are some of the links and resources that you could use for your students. So below, in the end, you could see the search engines, and one of them, for example, the niche.com website, could be used to see what kind of majors are. So there are filters which you can use, and these are, of course, free resources where you could, through filters, choose the area of study, and you would see what kind of institutions in the US offer this kind of program within their institutions. And then you could take a look at the maybe take a virtual college tour either through their own resources of the university, because they also conduct information sessions, or there is a separate website for online college tours, which you can see just below and just above the search engines. And understanding also the financial part, of course, the biggest also question for many international students, which would be seen from the website of each institution, but also it will be available through common data set, which is a report that is published annually by each institution. And there you could find the average amount which is provided by the university for the students, what kind of aid they provide. And the statistics from common data set are all collected together on the website of the Big J Educational Consulting, which you could see the third point here, which you can explore the resources and find the table specifically for international students, where you could see the average percent of international students who receive aid, in what amount, how close it is to the total sum, and by that identify the relevant institutions. And when you understand that this university offers the necessary major, it's the financially available option, you could research the university strategic plan, the newsletter to understand the college life, not maybe yourself, but also suggest that the student to do so. And there is also a great resource by the National Association of College Admissions Counseling, which is a college comparison worksheet, where all the criteria that we mentioned today during the session are compiled in one table. And you could offer that table to a student so that they will see whether they want to study, let's say, in an institution where both female and male students study together, or maybe if it's a female only college where that would be more comfortable for some of the students. Maybe the class size would affect, and other things that I mentioned earlier. So I hope that these resources will help your students. And to the next slide. So moving to the funding your studies, I mentioned a couple of resources earlier, and the resources of the students and their family, of course, should be considered. And this is something that would be indicated while they will be applying to the institutions. It's also the sources that are offered by the university, merit-based, need-based scholarship for student athletes. Of course, it could be sports scholarships, and there could be presidential scholarships, so different kind of scholarships that are awarded for their leadership experiences or some other outstanding talents. And there could be external scholarships offered by different organizations. Next slide, please. Here you could see the division of how the studies could look like, what kind of amount is necessary for being able to study in the US. And there are a number of generous institutions that would help cover these expenses, but of course, it's necessary also to consider family resources as well, and allow the family to prepare beforehand, understanding what kind of amount they need, for example, for personal expenses here, as you see, for the application itself. And throughout the application, of course, it's possible to have some waivers, but it's also something that needs to be planned by the family beforehand. And understanding that some of the expenses would differ from the state to state, and whether the university is located in a big city or in a smaller area. And the next slide, please. So here you could see that merit-based and needs-based scholarships are assessed based on GPA, how highly they rank in their class, and also the availability of international curriculum, the test scores that they have. And earlier I mentioned the document called Common Dataset, where it's possible to see the SAT test score results and range that the university considers and what kind of scores they had among the accepted students, their academic achievements. You would also see what kind of factors are considered to be very important, or just considered by a specific institution. That would also help to inform the decision of a student and understand where maybe their outstanding skills or experiences are valued and match the university priorities. Also, it's the family income is considered if this is a need-based institution. And you could see that there are some opportunities for, and it will be, of course, discussed in the other day about the sports scholarships. Some major specific scholarships could be available, diversity scholarships, and transfer scholarships for students who are considering to apply after they already enrolled to a certain institution, but first-year students receive the major portion of the scholarships. Next slide. So here also you could see the useful links that could help with the finding generous institutions. There are several links with a list of institutions that could be considered by your students, especially if they are looking for full tuition or full ride opportunities where everything will be covered, depending, of course, both need-based and merit-based scholarships. They still consider the achievements of the student, how rigorous their studies were, how prepared they are, whether they already understand their future plans. But I believe that the statistics and the lists that are offered here would help at least to have a starting point of researching and even developing a fully comprehensive college list. And now I'm passing floor to my colleague, Yulia.
Thank you, Arai.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arai. I would like to quickly jump in before Yulia continues with this wonderful presentation. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat at any step that you might see on the screen. If you think that something is confusing for you at this moment and you would like to clarify more, please, this is like the right moment to write your question, raise your hand, like ask whatever like is interested for you. And of course, it was a question that whether we will share the presentation or not. Yes, we will share all the materials and all the links here. You can see they are clickable, so you can easily get the access to these links, or as it was mentioned, before, there was a worksheet also for your students that you might just like open, print out and use with your students easily. And also, of course, these links are clickable, so you can anytime take a look and explore what is there. Also, at almost all of the slides, you can see the website educationusa.state.gov. Which is actually our main website that provides just like a lot of information, useful information for not only for advisors, but of course for school counselors, like the same links, some kind of worksheets, maybe even tests that you can easily use in your work. And so like I'm happy to pass the floor to my colleague Yulia, and she will continue these wonderful steps.
Yeah, thank you, Oksana. Thank you, Arai. So indeed, right, after the students have done their research, using various online instruments and identifying their criteria, as Arai has shared, and they put together their table with all the requirements. And they have research financial aid, and of course they understand what scholarships they'll be applying for. So it's time for step number 3. This is basically when you apply, literally apply. So when the students actually put together the list of documents. And I'm going to go a bit in detail, sharing about each part of the application process and which each of these contains or means. I'm going to ask Oksana to click on the slide. There's like a bit of animation here. Anyway, so we will start with the application form. So there are different kinds of application forms. The most popular is called Common App. Also, Coalition App is widely used. I'm going to talk a bit in detail about Common App because it's the most popular. So the peculiarity of these forms, like Common App or Coalition App, is actually that the students don't really have to complete every form separately. They just complete specific sections and some additional sections peculiar to specific institutions, and then the form actually gets sent to all the institutions on their list. So there's no requirement to complete every form separately. However, some institutions only accept their portal, like the application form from their portal, or sometimes it's an alternative because sometimes students want to apply to many institutions. We generally recommend up to 20, and Common App actually lets the students apply to up to 20, but some students want to apply to 30, 40, and of course, well, it's their decision. We usually tell them how much energy and time it all costs, but if they want to apply to dozens of institutions, well, nothing can stop them. So sometimes they choose to use Common App, and then they might use Coalition App, and then they might use application portals of the specific institution, because Common App only lets the students apply to up to 20 institutions. 20 is the maximum. Again, I'm going to cover this form a bit in detail during the next slide. The next part of the the package of the documents are academic transcripts and high school diploma. And the reason why I've highlighted this is because this is like the part of the application where if you are acting as a school counselor, even if you're a teacher and your student has asked you to kind of like act as a school counselor in this case, it means that well, it's your responsibility, if I can say that, to help the student prepare the transcript. And there are different actually ways to approach it. I'm going to go in detail about the transcript because some schools do issue transcripts in English, and sometimes that's easier. And other schools, it might be a law in your country that you can only issue a document in your local language. Therefore, the student has to translate, or maybe there's somebody in your school who can help the student to complete the translation. If the student has already graduated, maybe that's a senior who's graduated and they are reaching out to you to ask to serve as a counselor, then you would have to submit also their high school diploma. Then besides transcripts, there are recommendation letters, and usually every institution asks for different number of recommendation letters. Usually there might be 2 from teachers, and sometimes there might be like 1 or 2 so-called other recommenders. When I say other recommenders, is the way it's called on the application. Usually these are coaches, club leaders, like extracurricular activity mentors, the people who oversee the students' extracurricular activities, and they can all not only provide the academic perspective, how the students act in class, but they can also talk about students' abilities or interests and passions and anything else that they do after class. And the application process is very holistic, so each of these materials is equally evaluated and is equally valued. So again, the number of recommendation letters required is very different, but usually it's at least 2 academic recommendations and 2 so-called extracurricular recommendations. And also the standardized tests are a part of the application package. The foreign students, the international students, have to submit the English language proficiency test. It's usually TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. And I saw the question in the chat about the test. Don't worry, I'm actually going to cover that. But keep on sending your questions. We'll love that. So besides the English language proficiency test, there's also SAT or ACT. Basically, they test students' ability to think critically, analyze, analytical skills. It's a bit of mathematics, a bit of use of English, and it doesn't matter if the students decide to choose SAT or ACT. It's just SAT is more popular. We hear about SAT more, but generally institutions accept both. And besides the tests, actually, let me go back to the test and highlight that if the students do an IB program, or if they studied in an English-speaking environment for 3 or 4 years, it depends on the university, but it's 3 or 4 years, they might get a waiver, like English language proficiency test waiver. So if they do study in an English language-speaking environment, they might not have to submit that test. So they have to reach out separately usually, and we'll confirm that. So the next requirement usually is admissions essay. So in terms of terminology, we usually call it a Common App essay or personal statement, and then there are so-called supplemental essays. So this is where the student has to do a lot of original work because they have to write one essay which is going to be sent to each of the schools. And usually this essay is focused on, well, very personal topics, like talking about the difficulty they have overcome, or maybe the moment of growth or challenges, or again, some reflection questions that would highlight their outlook on the world, because this way admissions officers try to learn what kind of person the student is, because they're not only trying to see that the student is fit academically, because, well, a lot of international students are doing pretty well academically, but also they are expected to, well, take on extracurricular activities and have specific goals and values that would coincide with a specific institution. And supplemental essays are written specifically for each university. So every university would have a separate question and the students would have to write separate essays. So you can imagine the students usually write, it really depends on the number of the applications, but if they apply to 20 universities, they would write like 30, 40, 50 essays. Of course, the questions are similar, but it's a big workload. So we generally encourage students to approach those very early and not to wait until the last day before the deadline. There might be athletic portfolio, creative portfolio, or, well, athletic portfolio, creative portfolio if these measures require. And in terms of CV or resume, this is pretty common. So that's a common requirement that in addition to the activities section in Common App, the university might also give this opportunity to submit a PDF file or an image of CV or resume. And we generally encourage students to do that because usually they do a lot of activities and the application section only has 10 spots to talk about their activities or achievements. And this is pretty limited for a lot of students. So definitely encourage them to add their CV or resume. And financial aid forms, Araya has already mentioned that usually it's CSS profile, but CSS profile has some fees related to it. So sometimes students reach out and learn that they can actually submit some alternative forms that are free. Usually these are some PDF forms that they can send in and they have the value of the CSS profile. And some students, some universities might also require separate like essays or videos for merit-based scholarships and any other additional materials. And we're going to proceed with the next slide, and I'm going to go a little bit in depth on the topic of Common App, because this is a very important part. This is basically the main application. As I said, there are different applications, but this is one of the most popular. So there is over 1,000, I think now it's even more, universities that are participating and that are a member of Common App. So it means that there is a high chance that all the schools on the students list would be a member of Common App. And the Common App generally includes the sections such as education, where students complete information about their previous schools, high schools, whether there was any change in their education, whether there was like a time off, if they took an exchange year or a gap year, etc. Besides education, they also complete some basic information about their family members. Then there's information about the task scores. If they've taken the test, they have the chance to report their task scores. But it's important to highlight that not all the universities do accept the self-reported test scores. Therefore, students would have to submit the test scores officially, and in addition, they can self-report those in Common App. Then there's activities and honors section. I've mentioned it quite a few times. There's teacher recommendation section and the essays. And also the students have a chance to, well, they are required to pay a fee, but they also have a chance to ask for a fee waiver if they correspond to specific criteria. There's a list of criteria based on which you can apply to, basically which you can be eligible for a fee waiver. And usually that's like a specific income. So if the student requires significant financial aid, they usually qualify for a Common App fee waiver. And I've highlighted that recommendation letters and the school transcripts and generally the school profile, this is where counselor support is required, and also the application fee waiver. This is also the part where your support, if you're a school counselor, is required, because you have to confirm. So your student usually kind of like sends a small request, and on your side you have to confirm that the student corresponds to that specific criteria. We're going to move on to the next slide. So the topic of transcripts, we're not going to go very much in depth, but I wanted to highlight that, well, it is students' responsibility to communicate to you what they need. And every school has different approach towards the transcript. So this is AI generated image, and I think this is like the kind of transcript I had when I was an exchange student in the US. But every school transcripts look differently. So there's no universal specific form that everybody has to use. Like somebody used colorful paper, somebody used different colors on it, somebody's is just black and white. So your school might have a different transcript, and that's okay. But I just wanted to highlight the very main points that have to be present on the transcript, and we're going to go to the next slide. So the most important, of course, it has to be the name of the school. Let's try to move on to the next slide, please. So thank you. So there should be the name of the school, the address, like the phone number, the email, and then the name of the student. There's no like requirement in terms of like a lot of including a lot of information, just the name, sometimes date of birth, and then the list of subjects, credits or hours. Some schools don't really highlight the credits, so you should probably know the number of hours the specific course took, and then the final grade. There's no really need to specify like semester grades, but if you can do that, it might be useful. Well, sometimes if that's a final year student, you will still have to report a mid-year report and then a final year report separately. So besides the school information, student information, subjects, credits, and final grades, there also has to be a grade point average, so-called GPA, in the end of every year, and the final GPA, cumulative GPA. And then there should be a scale, because we have different scales, and there's no point of actually converting your scale to 4.0. It's an American scale, but usually students would just report their original scale. So if it's 10, it's 10. If it's 12, it's 12. And then they indicate the grade based on their scale. So same should work for the transcript, unless specifically asked for the school to actually convert the grades, but it's almost never asked. And well, then of course the signature, the principal's name, well, the stamp, whatever your school uses to make the document look official. And of course, if your school cannot issue the document in English, then you can issue this kind of form. Anyway, any kind of format, but it should include this kind of fields. So you can issue this document in your language, in your national language, and then have the student translate it, or maybe if your school provides like translation verification, maybe through English teacher, you can issue it in your language and then have it translated and verified. We're going to move on. And the test, I promised to cover the tests. So yes, indeed, somebody asked about the tests. TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo are the most popular. Sometimes schools might accept other tests as well. It's important to check, but sometimes students decide to actually focus on the first two, TOEFL, IELTS. Duolingo is legit. It's been around for I think 5 years and very widely used, but it's still newer. So usually I encourage students to just make sure they accept Duolingo, but in almost all of the cases they do. Usually it's B2. It's at least B2 level of English required, but if the student can score something up to something closer to C1, that would be great. B2 is a benchmark. And usually English language tests are used as a benchmark, basically to identify whether a student can speak English or not. And I've already talked about SAT, ACT. So it's important to highlight that there are only a few test dates for international students. So if the student is based outside the US, I think they only have a chance to take the test, SAT specifically, like 8 times a year. And ACT, I'm not sure, but again, there's a limited number of seats and there's a limited number of test days. So the students have to plan accordingly. Usually the students choose to take SAT in June or in August or September, October. But then if the student's taking the test in December, usually they're not applying for early deadlines, but for regular deadlines. And we're going to move on. And I would like to briefly highlight the deadlines. I've already mentioned the regular deadlines. So the regular ones are usually in January. This is when the students receive their response, well, by the end of March. But there are also early action and early decision. So early action, this is when students just apply early, usually November, December. and receive their response very early, usually before the new year. But there's also early decision, and it's binding. Binding meaning that they sign a contract, well, like electronically sign a contract, and they commit to attending the specific institution if they get accepted with the financial aid you need. And when the students sign this kind of contract, it shows the institution that they are the student's priority. So the students apply early, receive their response early, and it's also the student's way to show that the institution is their number one. And there's also rolling admission. This is when the students, the universities receive documents, accept documents all year round. But usually, if the student is targeting funding or full funding, it's either early or regular deadlines, or rolling admissions if they apply early. And of course, transfer admissions, they differ a bit from, from the first year application, but the procedure is very similar. And we're going to move to the step number 4. Actually, this is a very pleasant step. We're not going to go in depth because, it's usually happening after all of these documents and after a lot of energy is invested. But I will just highlight that the main document here is so-called I-20 form. This is sometimes students ask, okay, like, how do I get visa? All they need to know is that they have to get admitted, get the funding they need, and if everything works out with that, then they get so-called I-20 form from the university. With that form, they apply for visa, and they have a visa appointment at the consulate. They go through the interview process, then they get a visa and travel to the US. That's pretty much it. And if you have questions about that, we'll be happy to talk about that later. And the step number 5, and that will be the final step. This is the pre-departure, pre-departure period. Usually counselor role here is not as hands-on as during the application process. As EducationUSA advisor, we just let students know what to pack, like what kind of documents they need, how to reach out to the university, how to secure housing. But at the same time, universities themselves have outstanding services, and usually they provide this information to them as well. So usually a counselor's role here is just to support and maybe answer some questions back and forth. All right, so these were the 5 steps. I know 4 and 5, these are very short descriptions, well, because again, it's a long time before we get there. But I also see the questions in the chat, so Oksana, back to you, and I would be happy to answer the questions.
Thank you so much, Yulia, for covering all these steps. And dear colleagues, if you have any questions, I also know that it might be quite a lot that we cover so much information in such short period of time. But please don't hesitate, ask your questions in the chat. I think, so the question regarding the test was already covered. Thank you, Arai, also for assisting with the question about UPenn and Columbia example that you provided to our counselors. And also, we have a question. If a student studies in the Georgian language sector, should we still calculate the GPA as we do for students in the American sector? Maybe, Yulia, you have any kind of advice for that?
Yeah, I think we might need more information here, what you mean by American sector, whether it's an IB program or, let me put it this way. If it's like a public school, the general education public school, then usually the students just receive grades in their original scale, right? So if the students is with you for the last 4 years or for 3 years as your high school is, and their teachers use the 10 or 12 scale or whatever kind of scale, then this is how you should report the student's GPA. But if it's like a dual diploma situation where there's also an option to convert, the diploma, like the credits and everything, to American system, then it's a different situation. Then yes, but if the student originally received grades on a Georgian scale, then it would make sense to not convert it artificially, because it's a long thing, with the conversion. Usually the credential evaluation agencies do that professionally. So we just generally encourage students to put their original GPA, and universities are ready for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope it helps. If any comments regarding specifically this question, please, you can also raise your hand, you can provide more details about this situation. Thank you. Another question, we have terms grades on the transcript, and sometimes they are not as strong as the final grades, like let's say A, C, and A with final A. Students are worried that these term grades might affect the overall impression of their academic profile. Is this something they should be concerned about?
Mm-hmm. It really depends how you report them, because if you by term you mean like a trimester or a semester, usually you would include just the final year grades in the report. So usually term grades are not really included unless it's a final year and the student is a final year student now. So you would have to report the first term of the final year and then the second term, like the final grade. So usually the final grades are reported. But if it's like a requirement of your school maybe to report term grades, well, I would just encourage the students to do well on their midterm exams and not worry too much if their final grade and GPA is generally okay. But of course, the higher the better. But if the student is an A student and there's like an minus, I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I also think it's good to remember that there is a holistic approach to all the applications, that not only grades are considered, and our US universities representatives, I think they will share more about that. So how they actually consider those students and whether they pay more attention on their grades or maybe some other qualities of the students, like whom they are looking for. Thank you so much for your questions. Do we have anything else? If you don't want to write in the chat, just simply raise your hand and we will be glad to answer your question. While we are actually moving to our next topic, please share in the chat again your emojis. How do you feel about these 5 steps? As I mentioned, this is quite a lot, and especially if you have never worked with this kind of steps or Education USA or applying to US universities, it might look like a lot, but still it would be, I'm sorry if you are not muted. Could you please mute your mic? Yeah, I will do it. Thank you. So yeah, please don't hesitate, ask your questions. We will share all the recordings, all the materials. You will be able to take a look at this information one more time and reach out to us if you have any questions. We still have 2 days together, so I think we will be able to cover everything. Great. I see the nice picture from Maya in the chat. Thank you so much. That's great. Glad to hear, glad to see that everything works and you're still here, curious and excited about our next topic. And I think it's time to move. And I can see already our speaker, our special guest is here. So this is Jadira. I would like to stop my sharing the screen and check one more time. Okay. Okay.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, I can see you, Jadira. Thank you so much. I think that you can share your screen. Yeah, could you please try?
Yep, sure. 1 second. So I'm gonna be just sharing some portion of the screen, I guess. Can you wait 1 second? See, it's going a little crazy. Okay, I just need to adjust it. 1 second. All right. Can you hear me well? Do you
Yes.
do you also hear the background sound by any chance?
No background, no worries about that.
Awesome. Cool, great. All right. Do you think we can start now?
Yep, please. The floor is yours.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are at. My name is Jadira, and I'm really happy to be here virtually. I'm an outreach officer for NYU Abu Dhabi, and I cover 10 different countries in the region, including Central Asian countries, and I'm also taking back some countries from Caucasus this time. Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Moldova, Belarus, and I'm really happy to be back. I cover those countries and also help students navigate the application process to NYU Abu Dhabi. If the students have any questions, or counselors or teachers, they are more than welcome to reach out to me directly, and I'll be really happy to help them throughout the very overwhelming, I would say, process in their overwhelming period in their lives of the students. Now, today we're going to be talking about the writing section of Common Application, and also maybe some tips for recommendation letters as well. But beforehand, before starting off, I really want to share some information about NYU Abu Dhabi itself, and also the requirements that we have. We do not really have any updates this year so far, so the requirements remain the same. The English language proficiency level also remains the same. We are located in Abu Dhabi City, which is the capital of the United Arab Emirates. It's boiling hot right now here and humid. And students, we are now welcoming the students for the Marhaba Week, for those who are just kicking off their first academic year at NYU Abu Dhabi. We have 2,000 students in our campus, which is a part of New York University. It is the same university, but the only difference is the location. We're located in the Middle East, and the campus itself is quite international. So we have a lot of students who come from different parts of the world, and 78% of the students are international students, including the academic members, academic staff, as well as the administrative staff, including myself. So the students, when they are admitted, they also have the opportunity to study abroad in different parts of the world. Of course, including the main campus of New York University, which is in the New York City. And we also have another degree granting campus in Shanghai City, which is in China. From this map, you can see other destinations where the students can spend their 2 semesters maximum studying abroad and exploring the culture, and also having an education which is going to be internationally recognized in the future. We have 26 different majors available. I am 100% sure that the majority of the counselors and also the students who are really interested in Abu Dhabi campus, they are pretty much familiar with the majors available in our campus, and also with the minors available there. And everything is pretty much located on the website, so I really recommend the students to utilize the website as much as they can. As I've mentioned before, the requirements remain the same. We really do pay attention to the level of English language proficiency, which is very, very important, because the countries that I cover, they are non-English speaking countries. And that's why they have to demonstrate the level of English language proficiency, which is quite important at NYU Abu Dhabi campus specifically. And even if we say on the website that we don't really have a minimum requirement for the English language proficiency test, we still have some recommendations and preferred scores. If we talk about, let's say, Duolingo, it should be 130. It is better to be 130 and above. If we talk about IELTS, for example, it is better to have at least 7.5 and above. So I really recommend students to have at least that score in order to compete with other students, because they're going to be competing with other students from all over the world, including the English-speaking countries as well. In terms of the standardized tests, we do not require standardized tests per se, as SAT, ACT, or any other internationally recognized standardized tests. However, if the students do have those test results, they are more than welcome to submit. If the students don't have SAT results, but they are willing to report their IB scores or A-level scores, they can also predict them, but we do not accept self-predicted scores per se. So the predictions should be done by the counselors or whoever who is responsible for that thing. Any school official, or maybe the principal, whoever who is responsible for the academic side of the school, they will need to predict the scores based on the performance that they had previously. And we don't really have a specific template for the predictions. Whatever template that the school usually has, they can use that, but it has to be official. Letter of recommendation is also required. Self-reported academic record, which is going to be available after submitting the common application itself. So self-reported academic record which is also required by NYU Abu Dhabi, should be completed only once the application is submitted. So they don't really have to worry about SRAR before submitting their application to the university. But once they submit them, they will get the access to the academic portal, the applicant portal of NYU Abu Dhabi, and then they will be able to submit and also to complete the form entirely with the help of the counselor, and also based on the transcripts that the counselors have already provided. Deadlines also remain the same. We do not have early action, but we only have three application plans, which is ED1, 2, and regular decisions. So if the students are wondering about the early action, NYU Abu Dhabi does not have that option. So the thing is that since we have three campuses, 3 degree granting campuses, the students really need to be aware of the differences between the campuses admissions process, because they, like every single of them, have different approaches. Of course, considering the holistic admissions process, but in Abu Dhabi campus specifically, we do have 2 stages of admissions process. 2 rounds, I would say. The first one is that the students need to complete the common application itself, submit them, and then wait for the results. The shortlisted candidates will be invited to the interview process, which is called Candidate Weekend, which you can see from here. Candidate Weekend is the second stage of the admissions process. Not everyone will be invited to that process. Only shortlisted candidates who are more likely to get admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi, but still being evaluated, and then their applications are still being read. So let's say if we've got, let's say 5,000 applications from all over the world, we may invite, let's say, just giving some example, not the specific number, but let's say 500 students were invited to the Candidate Weekend program. So not everyone will be invited. And also, even if the students are invited to the Candidate Weekend program, it does not guarantee the admissions. So the Candidate Weekend program is the interview process where the students will be also taking some tests during the programming, and they have to fly all the way from their home countries to Abu Dhabi cities directly. They need to participate in person. So I really want to warn the students beforehand to have their international passports ready before the travel dates, because the majority of the students do not really have the international passports. And when they are invited, they may not really have enough time to apply for passport, and they may not really able to attend the Candidate Weekend program, which will again not guarantee the admissions afterwards. So they have to have the international passport. They need to be aware of the dates of Candidate Weekend, which is also on the website, because let's say if the students are invited to the Candidate Weekend number 1, which is going to be in early December, then if they're having a very important exam during that time, which they cannot really miss, they have to apply later so that they can participate at Candidate Weekend program specifically, because Candidate Weekend is a must. If they are invited, they are required to participate, and they cannot skip that part. So we've got 3 Candidate Weekend programs. We last year we had 2 or 4 of them, but now we're going to be having only 3 of them, depending on the application plan that they chose. Another very important thing is that if the students are considering all 3 campuses of NYU New York, Abu Dhabi campus, and Shanghai campus, they will need, so when they're filling out the application form, they will need to choose the campus of preference, which one is the primary campus of interest, which one is the second campus of interest, and which one is the third campus of interest. Depending on the preference, the campuses will be also reading their application in that order. One thing to note is that NYU Abu Dhabi will primarily be reading the applications of the students who chose NYU Abu Dhabi as their first campus of interest, as their primary campus of interest. So if the students are thinking about all 3 campuses, they really need to make their very wise decisions, which campus they are really committed to study in the future. Either it's a New York campus or Abu Dhabi or Shanghai. So they really need to maybe consult with the counselors and also evaluate their chances, and also read the majors that they are going to apply. So let's say if they're looking for specifically one major which is not available in Abu Dhabi campus, maybe it does not really make sense to apply to Abu Dhabi campus specifically. So it's very, very important to think twice and make their decisions afterwards. All right, so we also have financial aid and scholarships available for the students, for the international students, and they will need to submit the application for financial aid through the CSS profile, which the students are 100% aware, I guess. And we do have 100% of scholarships, which is a full grant, full ride scholarships. Of course, they will be based only on needs. We don't have any merit-based scholarships. We only have need-based scholarships, which are based on their needs, and the students will need to demonstrate their needs by filling the application on CSS profile. Okay, so let's get it started. So I was just talking about the introduction part, but now I really want to talk about the essay part. Essay part specifically, so when the students apply to NYU Abu Dhabi specifically, or any other campus that we have, they will need to apply only through common application. We are not available on any other platform. The students cannot apply through the website of the university. They only can apply through common application, and they will need to choose a university. And maybe you've already noticed that the list of the essay topics hasn't changed at all this year. So the essay prompts remain the same. NYU Abu Dhabi does require the general common application writing section, so they will need to choose one of them among all the 7 prompts that we have, and they will need to elaborate on the topic that they chose. So you can see the essay topics here. And what tips do we have for the students? Why does the essay really matter? Because the students usually have a very great opportunity to speak directly to the admissions committee. And I really encourage the students to look at the values of the university. If the value do not really match with the student's value, it may not be the best place to study, for example. Or if they have something to share about, let's say they have 7 prompts. If they don't really have anything to share for on the first topic, let's say, but they still think that it's a great option. If they don't really have anything to share about, it doesn't really make sense to elaborate on that topic. So I recommend students usually start drafting at least 6 months before they submit their application on Common App, because it usually takes a lot of time to start drafting the whole essay, and we are sure that the students will be also submitting their essays to different universities. The students should not include the name of the university in their common application essay 100%, because this essay will be sent to all the universities that they're going to be applying on common application. Unlike we have another school-specific essays, right? In the school-specific essay, the students usually have the specific question, why us question, why, let's say, Harvard University, why NYU Abu Dhabi, or why Columbia University. It can be unique to each university because it's under the university section. It can be like a love letter. However, in Abu Dhabi campus itself, in all our campuses, in all our network, we do not really have a why us, or why are you applying to NYU, let's say. Other universities may have this kind of questions, but NYU does not have it, because in most cases, NYU already knows why the student is applying to NYU, either Shanghai, Abu Dhabi, or NYU New York. We are already aware of that, but we really want to know more about the student, and that's why we have another NYU specific essay, which is optional, so the students do not really have to submit and write that essay. But if they have something to talk about, if they have an experience, a story about building the bridge which is not physically building the bridge, but also serving as the bridge between maybe different communities. If they have something to talk about, they can write a 250 words essay just to share about their experience and how does it align with the values of NYU itself. It hasn't, the topic hasn't changed. It was the same last year. It was a little bit different, a little bit similar 2 years ago, but the idea is the same, building the bridge. Did you have any experience on that in this regard? General writing tips and editing tips. Of course, the students should draft them and also find their own voice. And I really encourage the students not to follow the very general template or general style of writing essay, because the students usually go on the Reddit or any ChatGPT or any AI generalized tools or any other resources, and they may copy the same style. But I really encourage the students not to do that, because otherwise the students will really lose their voice and they will really lose their own style. All right. What about the recommendations? A recommendation letter is also one of the most important integral parts of the application to NYU Abu Dhabi. And we only require one letter of recommendation. And what do the recommenders need to know? The recommender is not the person who has a great position at school or who has the only authority. The recommender doesn't have to be the school principal. So when I recommend the students to find a recommender, I highlight the fact that they do not have to look for the person who has a great position at the school, saying that, okay, the principal has a power at school, let's just have the letter of recommendation from that person because they are better, or they have the authority at the school. If the person does not really know nothing about the student, it again does not really make any sense to submit the recommendation letter into the common application. So the person needs to know the student really well. They have to have something to talk about, and they really have to know them at least for 1 year so that they can speak about the person, they can speak about the student. It can be the teacher, it can be the school official, it can be the SAT tutor, it can be the professor who the student have already worked within maybe the research, or maybe they've already written the article, maybe they've conducted the joint research at the university with that professor, or maybe anyone who knows the person, who knows the student from the academic perspective. So what tips do we have for the recommendation letters? For the counselors, of course, it really needs to be specific and specific. It really needs to have at least one example to talk about. You really need to have the story to talk about. If you, or also maybe the idea to talk about. How have you, in which capacity you have worked with that specific student. The length should be from 1 page to 2. So we don't really have a specific recommendation for the length, but it can be 2 pages maximum. If it's more than 2 pages, it may not be that relevant. So try to be very precise and try to really highlight the important stories that you've been through together with that student. Or maybe you have something to share about the weakness of the student, because the weaknesses part is also very, very important, because the admissions officers, the university really wants to know the weaknesses, not only the positive sides of the students, how the student handles the stressful situations, how the students manage the conflict resolution, and in which capacity you have worked together, and for how long you have been working with that student together, and how did he or she handle different situations within the school, within the capacity that you have worked together with. The possible template is going to be the heading. Of course, it is better to have the school letterhead if available. Majority of the schools usually ask from me if the letter of recommendation has to have the stamp. You don't have to have a stamp, but it is really important to have the signature of the person who wrote the letter of recommendation. And of course, the letterhead of the school if available. Introduction, academics, a little summary about the academics, the capacity that you have worked with, strength and the weakness of the student, and extracurricular activities if you have witnessed any activities that the student had been doing so far, or maybe you have done that together, or again the research that you have done together, or any other applications that you worked on together. Maybe you applied for the summer program, summer courses at Stanford University, and how the student handled that situation, how the student approached that situation. If you have something to talk about, please try to expand the whole topic as much as you can. Closing, of course, the conclusion needs to be there, and again, 2 pages maximum. When we talk about the school profile, we also have, so we've talked about the letter of recommendation, we've talked about the writing section, which is also very important is the school profile. Some of the counselors from here have participated at the school profile session with us in May this year, and one thing to really to approach as a takeaway is that the university, specifically NYU, does not compare one school with another school. So the students, the counselors and the students may be thinking, okay, we are from a very regular state school. The other student is from the very academically rigorous school. So the grade that they had at the public school, and then the grade they had from the internationally recognized very strong school may be different, but the student from public school had A+, which is equal to our C at our school. How fair it is to approach this kind of situation. The thing is that we do not look at other school while reading your school. So try to be very concise and specific while filling out the common application school profile. Try to expand the whole picture of the school. What is the graduating class size? How many of the students have, what is the academic performance within this school? How do you weight the GPA? Do you have any courses which are stronger than or maybe more difficult than the other courses? Let's say the calculus or any other courses. To what extent it is difficult to study at your school? How many of the students have had, let's say, A+ in this specific course throughout the last, let's say, 4 years? If only 5% of the students had A+, then it means that it's a very, very difficult course to study, and it may also speak something about the school's curriculum. So do not think about other schools, but try to focus on your school profile in order to address the whole picture of the school, so that the admissions officers, the readers could understand the whole entire picture of your school profile specifically. What else? So the resources that I'm going to be sharing, of course, the College Board is the most helpful, I would say, resource to use for the counselors. And also I'm going to be sending some links to you so that you can also look at the school profiles, how you should approach the school profile. And I can also send the the video that we've made during the workshop of school profile in May, so that you can have your questions answered in the future. This is pretty much it. I wanted to share with the students and with the counselors, with the teachers. I may be visiting your country in the future, this September, October, and November, and I'll be really happy to meet you in person and talk more in detailed about the application of the students. I'm going to be also sharing my contact details with you so that you can have them and you can reach out to me directly. Any questions so far, I am more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Jadir, for covering so many essential steps in students' application and also covering recommendations letters. We will take a look more detailed about this and talk about this topic on our days 3. Yeah, so I remember that you mentioned that you are planning this site visit. So maybe you could share the countries that you are going to visit. And today we could find like someone already for your like next school visit. So what countries do you plan to visit?
I am starting with Armenia in September 14th. I'm going to be starting with Armenia, and then the following week I'll be going to Georgia, and the following week I'll be going to Azerbaijan, Baku.
Amazing, amazing. So
Yerevan and Dilijan in Armenia, and Georgia and Tbilisi, Baku in Azerbaijan. So those are the 3 first countries of my recruitment plan.
Great, thank you so much. So, dear colleagues, if you are interested to have Jadira at your school, organize a kind of presentation, like discuss it with students, you can write directly to me. Just reply to my last email that I have sent to you that you are interested in this contact with Jadira. If you save the contact of Miss Jadira, I think it's also possible to write to her directly and talk about this possible school visit that you could have together. Or like any other question that you are interested in. Am I correct? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So I think now it's time for main questions because for such a short period of time, we have covered a lot, I think. Yeah, like 5 steps of applying to US. Then also like students essay. Then we talked about letters of recommendations, yeah, like and students' profile in general. So while we still have all our speakers today, you're welcome to ask your questions. And I see the hand from Aidana. So you're welcome.
First of all, thank you for this informative session. And I have a question regarding the personal statement, because it's a kind of challenge for me. Probably one of the most challenging part of the counseling is like giving a feedback on personal statements, because I come from the generation, maybe some post-Soviet countries will agree with me. I come from the generation where we didn't have any like authentic voice, I don't know. We didn't self-reflect. So for me as a counselor, it's super, super challenging to give feedback, to give idea, to work on their essays, because we see the same problem in like current generation. Most of our kids, they don't know how to self-reflect, think of the idea about their growth and so on. And I read plenty of successful Ivy League essays, and I still don't understand what made them stand out and authentic. And so my question is how to develop the skill. I don't know, should I be observant or read more 1,000 essays to understand? Or it's this challenge comes from cultural, I don't know, cultural problems or what? Have you, in general, noticed this challenge in our country?
Thank you so much for this is a great question, I think. Maybe we could like hear from different perspective from like Jadira as a US university representative and also from Education USA advisors, like what they could recommend from this perspective. Jadira, would you like to comment like and give some kind of advice?
Sure. Honestly, I really agree with that thought because it really depends on, so it's also the matter of luck, to be honest, because we never know which topic specifically is going to stand out. And we never know how, so the thing is that when the students usually write their personal statement, have the drafting from the counselor, and then they already worked on the essay, and then they are going to submit, they may submit entirely other, like different personal statement after all, sometimes. So whenever I speak with the counselor, they may say, okay, we were developing one idea, and then the student ended up submitting a total different idea right before the deadline. And then we read a total different idea which stood out, for example, which can stand out 100%. So it really depends. And I honestly personally recommend students not using the AI tool at all, because they should really be as human based as it is possible. Because whenever we read the personal statements, even the letters of recommendations, they really sound similar to each other. And it can be very obvious that it was written by AI, and also whenever the counselor is reading and also drafting the letter of recommendation or the personal statement, they may have one style. Even the recommendations that I have already shared with you may somehow impact, and who knows how many of the students will be following the same structure that I have just shared with you. And of course, it will sound exactly the same as the other students because everyone just followed my recommendation. So I really would recommend students to be as simple as they can be, because we have somehow lost the simplicity, to be honest, while writing the personal statement. We really want to decorate the personal statement. Because we really care about the decoration part rather than like addressing the whole story. The students usually try to, follow how to make the reader very engaged, how to have the headline, how to have the hook. And then every single student will be following the same thing, and we end up getting very similar personal statements at the end of the day. So one recommendation for me is just make the students to be very, very simple, as simple as they can be. Simplicity is the key, I would say, especially with the AI-driven world right now. Simplicity is the key. So that's what I can recommend, to be honest. Because if I just show you the template, everyone will be just following the same template, and everything will end up having the same thing. So we will that way lose our own voice. Yeah. But again, there is no specific formula. Again, there is no specific. It's also, as I mentioned before, it is the matter of luck as well. It is the matter of who is reading the application, who is reading the personal statement specifically, and also in what mood the reader is. And also, is it the first application that the reader is reading, or is it the hundreds of applications that the reader is reading, for example? So we never know. So again, simplicity may be the key in that regard.
Thank you so much.
It answered somehow your question. I don't know.
That's a great advice. Yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Before I move to my colleagues, I would like to share also like one example from my work as EducationUSA advisor. So in our work, we read students' essay like very often, and I personally had a cohort of students which is called Competitive College Club Congress, and this is like a great community of alumni of the previous CCC and other groups like this. And while working with the students, one of them has shared like just like some kind of impressive essay, and I was like, I liked it so much. He worked on it in perspective from perspective of a horoscope, when he was born and what like kind of stars in what position they were at that time and how it influenced his life, his choice and things like that. So it was a kind of amazing essay. I have never seen anything like that. But as a result, unfortunately, he got rejections letters from all the university he applied to. And I was actually shocked. Yeah. So I then just like this is like really like the matter of luck. And apparently students with just like simple like essays without any kind of mysterious things in their letters, they got accepted, they were accepted and they got full ride. So yeah, it was like that. And yeah, so I would like to move to my colleagues Yulia and Darai. Maybe Yulia,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to share my experience as advisor. Well, I usually ask the student the very first question I ask is, what message are you trying to deliver with your essay? Like when somebody reads your essay, what do you want this person to understand about you? And it has to be one thing, because sometimes students tend to pack a lot of things in their essay. They're like, oh, I want them to know that I'm kind and I'm compassionate and I'm hardworking and I did this and I did that. I'm like, no, like put it in one sentence. Like, can you clearly put it in one sentence what you want the reader to learn from your essay? And then I encourage the students to differentiate the idea of the message and the story. Like the story is literally the tool for you to deliver your message. So there's like something the reader understands from you, and the story you're telling is just basically, like a fairy tale, right? After like listening to a fairy tale, we kind of get a morale in the end. So I tend to look at the essay from the same perspective. So there's like some sort of a story that engages the reader, but then they have to learn about this. And not every essay has to have a story. Sometimes it's just students like reflecting on things. And I do encourage the students to start from the middle, basically from the story or from the message, not starting from the hook. Because as Jadira mentioned, sometimes they try to be like very fancy with the hooks. Usually I just encourage them to put everything they want to say on paper, then polish it all, and then try to play with the hooks. Because for me personally, hook is very technical sometimes. Sometimes it's very personal. Sometimes they really try to make it personal and that's great. But sometimes it's just two sentences that are very technical and they just can play with different hooks. But the main part is the story itself. And usually like a little bit of a coaching works with the student, because sometimes they're like, I don't know what to talk about, like nothing in my life has happened that I want to talk about. Then you can ask, okay, like what do you want the reader to learn about you? Okay, so how do you want to be perceived? Why is it important for you? Like what in your application hasn't been mentioned yet, or like what would complement your application? So just asking questions usually helps to identify the one story they want to tell or one message they want to deliver. Yeah, and also I usually recommend Essay College Guy, like for templates and just technical writing things. But in terms of AI, I agree. I really don't encourage students to use AI to correct their essays or phrase anything. But what I've seen students do successfully is sometimes when they're stuck and then cannot come up with an idea, they sometimes can talk to the chat, like ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever. They just like talk. They use the chat as a coach. So they sometimes tell their stories and they ask questions, or they ask the chat to ask them questions. So sometimes it just helps to generate that one story, but then it's important that they take it from there and put the story in their wording and tell the authentic story.
Great, thank you so much. And Arai, maybe you could also share that tip that I have seen in the chat with your students, how you like recommended them to start writing, like with small tasks, like describe your day or things like that. Maybe you could also share just a bit like this kind of advice to our counselors.
Yeah, thank you, Oksana. So I could turn my screen, and I wanted to show one slide, which I was from the presentation for students, where these are especially the first half, the questions that I came up like asking during the consultations, which help students like first of all, when you provide this kind of non-judgmental environment where you are here to like hear basically everything like from their life, and then sometimes it's possible to identify some patterns from what they are saying, but if not, or if it's unknown like where to start, I think these questions may help. For example, with one of the students, I just asked like, what kind of words would you use to describe yourself? And at first they were shy, and then came up with different words that they would associate themselves with. And with some of the students, for example, he seemed to be very serious. And then it turned out that one of the words that he used was bright. And I asked, like, what brightness means to you? And also, we had some break in our consultations, and for the last consultation, like I saw him with his hair color being changed, and then it was like we discovered that it has been like a thing for years for him, and then starting digging deeper, like what does it mean something more than just a hair, like why? And I guess it's like this kind of I think it's I'm maybe mistaken, but the Japanese approach, when you just ask why and why again and again, while till you kind of hit the point. And sometimes it's also like what's on your mind lately, because there are some excellent students, they write well, they write from the mathematical approach when they turn on their logic and try to like think that this part of my essay will show my these qualities, this one will show my this part of my background, and it's too mathematical. And I think the essays that are very well written and that are breaking and making the point are when it's not mathematical and moves towards the point when you empathize with the student, you actually feel like, and I guess it's only, at least for me, it's like very intuitive. So if you feel that you're, even if it's something well written, but it's not touching your heart, maybe you could ask, like, is it something that you really want to tell? Is it something that truly something on your heart or not? Or maybe sometimes also it helps to provide your own examples of something that you kind of maybe shy to tell anyone, but allowing a student to do the same thing. So you first open up, and they also open up themselves. And sometimes I tell them, like, imagine I'm the admission officer. What would you tell me if it was not the official interview, but rather just a conversation? Like, what would you share? What you would want me to know about? And I guess one meeting is not enough to find out the answer. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 meetings, and the rest of the questions, if it's necessary, we could include these questions to the resources that we will share. And the writing centers of the universities, this is like not the US university, but I just opened the one random university, one of those that I also kind of used myself, which is so writing centers of both like US universities and many other, they publish articles or blogs about what is reflective writing, and maybe it could be practiced by younger students, not including like those who are applying, but also younger students, maybe if the school has the resources to include it somewhere, or maybe you could discuss it with parents and tell them that parents should ask their children more about how do they feel, what they realize, so that they develop this kind of reflective skill much earlier than when it gets to the essay writing. So by the time they write an essay, they are able to identify what kind of emotions they have. And the thing that Oksana mentioned, I tried to come up with different prompts that would help them to help them with the writing process. The one that they enjoyed themselves was actually also something that I found on internet, is like to do this exercise. If you really knew me, you would know that, and the student has to complete it. And sometimes something unexpected could come up. Or there is another exercise with 100 eyes, like you start the sentence with I, but the rest like is completely different things. And when it like one of the students like they wrote such a beautiful response, like with 100 I statements. Like I was so surprised. I thought, like at this age, I wouldn't be able to write so beautifully. And yes, and as colleagues mentioned, avoiding AI at all, like even at the brainstorming process, because even at the brainstorming process, I think it makes us lazy. And some, I think, but for counselors, AI could be helpful to develop this kind of writing prompts, or it could be writing from prompts from the writers, because there are a couple of channels on YouTube where the host invites actual writers and they share their tips, how they prompt their writing, like the creative writing, and there they also suggest some, for example, there is a book called Bird by Bird where there are some writing prompts, I believe, as well. But if you write on the internet like writing prompts for writers, there will be different prompts that are not personal statement related, but that will prompt overall like writing, and sometimes it's also like personal narrative writing. So yes, that's something that I would add.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing so many useful resources and ideas and hooks maybe for your students, how you can use AI as well. So unfortunately or fortunately, it's like integral part of our life already. So we have to just like learn how to use it and teach our students how to use it wisely. And then it definitely will be helpful for them. All right. Do we have any other questions? I see that the topic about essay writing is really something that is worrying, and like many counselors are struggling with this challenge all the time. I believe for Education USA advisors, it's also like one of the most challenging steps, especially review this essay, and we always try to help students to do like the best, but as we already heard the idea from Jadira, sometimes it's just a matter of luck and like you can't do anything with that. Yeah, and Jadira, thank you for sharing the link. Yeah, that's great. As I mentioned previously, we will share all the information, all the slides and links to you. So you can free this. You can use these links and resources for free, of course. And we hope that they will be useful for you and your students in future. And if you don't have any other questions, I think it was a great start of day one. We covered so many topics, just like want to recall it one more time, that to get together with you today, we covered 5 steps of the US application, how to apply to US and what students actually have to do. We also talked about essays, we talked about letters of recommendations. We'll talk more about them as well, because we will have specifically representatives of the university who cover different countries. So I think it will be valuable also to hear like their perspective, what they expect to get from you. They cover like a region, and we have 2 speakers that are responsible for different countries, like for Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Moldova, and other countries that include in the region. And of course, we shared many useful resources with you today. Hope you enjoyed, and hope you don't feel tired at the end of this day. And of course, we'll be happy to see everyone tomorrow. We will continue our discussion, and tomorrow we will start with the common app, and this is like the main application, the main app that students usually use when they apply to US university. We'll have special representative of this application, and she will tell all the details like about this step by step, what you should know about this and how you can help your students. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope to see everyone tomorrow. Have a great night.